Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Iskia. I'm the facilities coordinator for the Redmond Reactor Space. And before we start, I have a few things to go over. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Useful links will be shared throughout the chat, and the session will be recorded and is going to be available on demand 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. That brings us to today's session. It's going to run approximately for 30 minutes with times for questions throughout. And I will now turn it over to our speakers for introductions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new session here on the tips and tricks to bring your AI idea to life. My name is Cynthia Zanoni. I'm a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, and today I'm going to host April Edwards, the GitHub senior developer advocate. She will be sharing with us some great stuff about GitHub Copilot and how to connect with the DevOps world. And also, I have my partner here, Abril Urinha, who will be joining me in the discussion with April, to explore GitHub Copilot. And just before we go to the session, I just want to share the GitHub Universe Cloud Skills Challenge. We have thousands of people there, and basically, we just created a very special learning training for everyone who is looking, to understand more about the GitHub platform in general, considering, a very basic step in terms of a version control or how, collaborate on GitHub, and then move to new possibilities we have with GitHub, like the code space as a, our developer environment in the cloud, and of course GitHub Copilot. So we have some modules there to help you to create an API with Python, or create a web app with React, everything connected with Codespace and GitHub Copilot. So if you want to join us, the challenge will end this Friday, but you have a time to join and check the trainings, and also try, to complete the challenge and get your special digital badge to share on your LinkedIn, Twitter, or any other social media to, tell your community you are taking more the steps to grow your technical skills and growing your career in tech as well. So now let me just invite here Abril and April to join us. So welcome, ladies. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having us. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's get started here, the conversation with April. So I think most of you, maybe I really know April because she had a very brilliant time here at Microsoft leading DevOps, and today she is building GitHub with GitHub. So I think this is interesting, but outside your tech life or your tech journey at GitHub, or, in the industry. So I'm just curious to hear from you, April. How do you find a perfect balance between your technical career and your personal life? Because I know you love, to have outdoor sports, etc. And so can you tell us a little bit how you know to balance between your career and your personal life?
You used the word perfect balance before, and I think you need to remove the word perfect, because it's definitely never perfect, even though we strive for this ideal. So for me, it's definitely balance. I think I've got no point in my career where I love what I do. I love the tech. I'm passionate about it. but I need to take a step back and do something completely different. And triathlon is actually quite a lonely sport, so a lot of alone time training, but it forces me to stop work and go focus on something else for an hour or 2 hours. Saying that, today I haven't made it out. It's evening time where I'm at in the UK, and unfortunately, I just haven't had the time. But yes, someone, Liz on YouTube has just said progress over perfection. Absolutely. I DevOps my personal life, right? I'm constantly looking to make progress and adapt and better myself. So I do it as a personal challenge, personal DevOps.
Yes, yes. That's why I have the question, because sometimes when heard about DevOps, we think about pipelines, automation, and many other stuff. But DevOps is more than tools, but it is about the culture, and the culture starts with us to think about the thing, and especially how we manage. And as you mentioned, how we can implement the DevOps in our lives and in our careers. So I really like the your answer. And now I want to move for a brew.
Well, it is awesome to hear your experience about everything that you're doing, especially because I'm in my personal side. I'm just starting to actually start doing like exercise, and it takes a lot of effort at first. But once I heard about you're doing like triathlons, and for me it was like, oh my god, that's awesome. So, and actually about your experience here in GitHub, I wanted to ask you. GitHub Copilot is known for its ability to understand developer intentions. Can you elaborate on how Copilot interprets natural language comments or particularly written code to generate accurate and contextually relevant questions?
So you put the word contextually in there, which is a big word, but I want to focus on that. So it's all about context, and Copilot is trying to understand our context and mechanism. And actually, there's a whole set of, we're calling it prompt engineering now, but how we talk to the AI systems, how we speak. And I think the first thing I want to highlight is, so I'm actually based in the UK. So I am around people that speak British English, and British English is very different than American English. So first of all, we have two different contexts there. And then for both of you, like Cynthia, you speak Portuguese. I speak zero Portuguese. I know like three words. Caprihinha, abrigado, and oh, I knew another one when I was in Portugal recently. But it's a beautiful language. But the way you speak English is different to how I speak English. To even the people sitting next to me will speak British English. So context is really important. And GitHub, we've done a few things to help the developer experience in that. But understanding how to ask a question, and I'll give everyone a little tip or trick. Sometimes you have to ask the question multiple times in different ways. So we have an intent, but it doesn't know that. So we just have to give it the context, and we have to be exact. So if you say, for instance, Cynthia, help write a YAML pipeline to deploy to Azure, it will do that. It's not going to give you a lot of detail, and you can't say Copilot isn't good. You didn't give enough context. So what we might then want to say is, GitHub Copilot, can you please write me a YAML file that deploys to Azure using Azure Key Vault? And, we want to tell it the exact steps. We need to build a recipe. So we need to give it all the ingredients, if that makes sense. So if we want to make a magic potion or make that, bake a cake, we need to give it all the ingredients it needs. So that's the context it has.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'll get back to Cynthia.
Thank you, Gabriel. So, yes, I think it's something interesting here. You mentioned it is about context. So, and in terms of, a technical career, or sometimes, how many tech someone can be, sometimes have, the challenge to communicate clearer with other humans. So, thinking about a computer, so where you needed to be asking stuff or trying, get some answers to help you. And as the GitHub Copilot is our AI pair programming to help us in our, tasks, etc. How do you think the GitHub Copilot can facilitate in terms of, a teamwork? How we can, maybe, I don't know if you have some guidance or you have an experience potentially with, GitHub partners or something like that. But how how you can guide us to understand how to create, a practice to try integrate GitHub Copilot in a teamwork environment, potentially, I don't know, guiding people how to prompt it, or everything. So I don't know if you can, share some thoughts about.
Absolutely. So I want to just clarify the flavors of Copilot that we have of GitHub Copilot. So if you've used Copilot today, you've opened up your IDE and you've asked it to do a thing by using comment based, and it takes that context of your comment. And actually going a step further, we started really leveraging GitHub Copilot chat. So you can expand the context you were giving Copilot in a chat form, which is really good. So you can either speak to the chat window, or you could type it in and ask it the question. And if we think of how that impacts our code, it enables us to look at our code and make it better. So a really good example is we're handed a net new project, right? And as a developer, we're going, how do we get started? And maybe you've been assigned this task in a sprint, and more than likely you're working on an engineering team. So it's things that, how do you get started? That's really critical. And time to get started, right? So when we've picked up a task in a project, a lot of times we have skilling up time. And that means maybe learning a new language or doing a new thing. But then also, how do we make it better for the next person? Cynthia, would you like to see something in real life action?
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
If we pull up my screen, I actually have some code here we can look at. So I have a repository here that holds some Python code. And what I've done is I've spun up the code in a GitHub code space. And a GitHub code space is Visual Studio Code in the cloud. It's going to give me the identical experience here. And I can go ahead and select some files to open. I want to actually use this file. This file is a really good one. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for everyone watching as well. So if we look at this file, I'll be honest, I know some Python. I'm not a Python expert. Are either of you Python experts?
Okay. No, we're the JavaScript side, but I think Copilot can help us. No, now we can see on practice. So Copilot is helping us to create the regex code. So we'll begin.
Absolutely. So I'm not a Python developer by birth, as I like to say. I can kind of hack my way through it. But let's say we're getting started on this project. We're handed this task to do something with this file. So as we're getting started, so remember we talked about context before. Now I could say to Copilot, I have GitHub Copilot chat open up here on the pane. I could say, can you please explain the code? Now I could ask it that. Now, if you see here, we've developed some shortcuts. So I can ask it to explain the code. I've highlighted it here to give it the context. And it's going to look at this and look at the code and give us a little bit of an output. And I'll make it a little bit bigger for us to see what it's doing.
Yes, we can see. Great.
Good. I can't make this bit any bigger, but what it's doing is it's still thinking. So it's internet dependent. Okay, good. I'm glad it takes less time to think than I do. But it's looking at these 3 lines of code I've highlighted and it's explaining them to me. So I can see that it's taken the first line here, line 3, and says regex. This is an email validation regular expression. It goes down to the next line and says this is a phone number validation regular expression. And then it tells me what the next line is doing. So that's really cool. The other thing we can do, because remember I talked about context and how we ask these questions, instead of having to type out what I just typed out, I can do a / command and it can do things for me like explain the code. And the really cool thing about that is it doesn't matter what version of English you're speaking. So first of all, if you're in a cross collaborative team, we're picking up new code, we can understand the code. Second, we can just type / explain. We have shortcuts. We have all sorts of shortcuts. So we have things like tests. I love this for writing tests. Can you write me some unit tests? So I can do all sorts of things. Now, if I'm getting started on this project, it's explained to me what it's done, but let's help our teammates out, right? So Cynthia and Abril, you're going to pick up this code next. I'm going to ask Copilot to, can you please add some comments into my code and see what it says. Now we can see it's referencing those 3 lines still, and it's going to give us some explanation, some comments. So this is really, really beneficial for us. So let's see what else it spits out. So in the days of kind of traditional Copilot, it would autofill some context for us. I'm going to go ahead and insert this code at the cursor here. We've kept our regular expressions and we have some explanation. So not only have I understood what's happened, but my teammates and the next person after me can understand. So whether I'm picking up new code or if I've written code, adding comments to your code is really valuable to the next person. And as a developer, I hate writing documentation, like with a passion. I think we all do. So this is an easy way to insert some documentation. We can also ask Copilot to do some other things here. We can ask it to fix our code and do all sorts of stuff. So if I, for example, highlight this code and use that / command and say fix, because I'm not going to ask it a fix. I'm just going to tell it to fix my code.
I think this is a very, very great point, April, because if we think like we have a company, potentially like a company on charge to provide a payments API to the market, and we need, open the API and we just can't say to the partners, hey, here's the link, here's the endpoint, and here's the math. But, we can leverage this kind of comment to connect with a Swagger documentation, etc., to have, an automatic page available for everyone, to understand what is happening in the API, etc. So I think this is very good.
Mm-hmm. And this is all available in your IDE today. So I'm using a GitHub Codespace, which is hosted in the cloud in Azure. I could pull up any browser. I could literally be sitting next to you, Cynthia, and pull up a secure Codespace to work from. I don't have to run Visual Studio Code locally. It takes a couple minutes to spin up the code. So for me to be able to go to make code changes and do things pretty much anywhere in the world on any machine, I use Codespaces in my day-to-day as well. And then I pull up my favorite extensions. So I do have the chat extension here on the left-hand side of my screen. And I have my settings synced between VS Code and Codespaces. So I know that if I'm working in VS Code or Codespaces, I have that experience 110%. So yeah, we've made some changes. That's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. Are you all happy with that?
Yes.
I'm actually going to push our changes up and talk about another way we can communicate. Actually, I'm going to say we made some changes with Cynthia. Deborah. I spell your name correct. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I can't spell my own name correctly, so I do have to ask and make sure that I spell other people's names correctly. Right. So if I go back to my repo, I should be able to, what I didn't do is I didn't open a branch. Oh, I didn't make my changes on a branch. We can fix this. Let me create a new branch real fast. There we go. Oops.
I think we have just a question here in the chat, so I will cover when you are just fixing the comment. So we haven't asked to understand the relationship between the Microsoft 365 Copilot with GitHub Copilot. So I think this is interesting because during the Ignite week, we have a lots of announcements in terms of Copilots coming, to Security, M365, etc. But I think it's important to say that in terms of subscriptions, as we have, in the question, GitHub Copilot subscription is something related with GitHub Copilot, and the M365 is a different subscription. So if you have one, you will have just the single subscription and not both, platforms. So.
Yeah, and that segmentation of products, right? That's exactly why we do it, and different capabilities. So yes, the licensing is very, very different. But yes, I think one thing to think about is GitHub launched Copilot to be your AI pair programmer about 2 years ago, and then Microsoft has rebranded a lot of things with Copilot as well. And it's the intent to think Copilot, your pair programmer. It's your rubber duck. It's your best friend to code with. So that's really important things to kind of keep in mind.
Yes, great.
So you ready to see some code changes now? So we made some code changes, right? So we look how we can kind of get started, how we can add some comments. But I think what's really important is if we're good developers in a good high-performing DevOps organization, we need to think about streamlining our development cycle. And the next phase of Copilot is here. It's in beta. It's here. So when people ask me about licensing, this is a whole other licensing model we're not going to get into today. We do have documents on our website if people want to see it. But we want to make the Copilot experience closer to the developer experience and that development lifecycle as a platform, end-to-end delivery. And the code we just changed, I think we all can admit when we've submitted a pull request. Now we also didn't open a branch. That was bad developer me. I got a branch open, got my code changes in, and then I did a pull request. So pull requests are really important to collaboration in the development cycle, how we communicate. And when I did this, now often we're rushed. I was rushed because I know everyone's watching me type. And my pull request just says, I did some things. And we've all been there. We've rushed to get a project in. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my comment. And I'm going to hit the Copilot button. So we've put the Copilot capability into the browser. Now, there are a lot of other features I'm not showing here, but I'm showing the pull request feature. The reason why is it's part of the development and the DevOps lifecycle. So I'm going to ask it to give a summary of our pull request. So it's taking the commits and the files changed and generating a context for our pull request. So let's see what it comes out with.
This is magical.
This is
I
very
need to
magical.
I need to start
Magic.
using this.
So this is really cool. Now that we
Wow.
just made a small change. Quite often I'll do this with more changes. But what it's done is the commit references the file we just changed, which if we all go back to here, we can go back to our little file, utils.py. It sees that it's in our commit. We can look at our files change as we normally would, and it summarizes our changes. So it can see that we've added 3 regular expressions to improve it. We didn't do a lot. If I were to add some tests, which we could do, we don't have a lot of time. Again, it only takes a couple seconds to do these things, but it's summarizing it in our pull request for us. So in terms of our development cycle, it's improving our ability to communicate all the changes we've made. Because quite often, if we've made a few changes, someone has to review our changes. And to have a true automated CI/CD system and to help cut down on what I like to call faff. I've definitely lived in England too long to use that word, but the fluff around our day-to-day job as developers, like we're having to write pull requests, summarize what changes we had, and people always have questions about what we changed and why we changed it. So this is a great way to put Copilot into the browser experience with pull requests. We've also put it in the CLI experience. So as you're in like the code space I was in before, VS Code, you can use the CLI to look up Git commands or GitHub CLI commands. So we don't have to change that context of what we're doing. So this is one of my new favorite features is pull requests. Again, we could do a larger pull request to have more changes, but I know we're a little conscious, we have some time, but we could absolutely do that.
Perfect. So I will let Abril ask, but I have just one more question here in the chat. It is about, if GitHub Copilot today have some limits in terms of how many, cycles potentially in one scenario we can, ask to have support.
So Copilot has limits. It's built on one of the models. It's just been updated to one of the newer models now. The tokenization. So when we ask it questions and words and it's taking the context of our files, there are limits to how much it can. It's Copilot tokenizes our words, and I think the limit is 32,000 tokens. So in terms of like reaching a limit that's a little bit more palatable to you and I, you have to have some pretty large files. And I do get this a lot. I haven't actually made changes to a file that large. I've usually worked on a project to break down a file and then made changes because we do have monolithic files, whether it's ARM templates or something else. But yeah, I think we try to find ways to make it a little bit more bite-sized chunk. So yeah, the models can't quite handle like, I haven't tried 1,000 lines of code, but if you've got a file with 1,000 lines of code, I would love to try it and try to break it.
Great. So Abril, do you want to move to the next question?
Yeah, sure. So, especially about Copilot, how does GitHub Copilot integrate with DevOps practices? And in what ways can it contribute to streamlining the development lifecycle, fostering collaboration between development and operation teams, or enhancing continuous integration on and continuous development CI/CD pipelines?
So I think starting with how we communicate, we've made some good waves, especially with like the pull request feature, which is why I like showing that one. In terms of how we write files, that's really helped us. That's why I kind of showed a little bit of change. What's interesting is between teams, like a lot of people, we use the word developer at GitHub. We kind of say everyone's a developer, which is true. If you're asking a computer to do something for you, you're a developer. And I know that's a highly debatable word and phrase, but so when we have operational teams and development teams working together, we hope it brings down the communication and the efficiency of both those teams. And we're seeing a lot more teams come together and using GitHub. So it's not just the dev teams as such. We do see operational teams. We're seeing PMs. So we're starting to put Copilot into more of the products. So you're going to see more and more of that. And that will enhance the development lifecycle. And the way I like to word it is we're bringing programmer closer to the developer experience. So there's also more features that we've put into security. I didn't highlight those today, but putting security scanning in your pull requests, again, so preventing that code from going up there. So doing things earlier and often in that DevOps process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, April. So I saw there's another question in the chat. Renato was asking, I often use Azure DevOps for all code management. Do we have a way to have Copilot in Azure DevOps, like this feature to summarize my comments?
So this current feature is browser only with GitHub, and we've called it GitHub Copilot Enterprise. So it's a product that is only available, and the reason why it's only available in the GitHub system is because it's browser based. So it's going to be browser based when you're logged into github.com. So for example, for all of you watching out there, I'll just show you. Let me just pull up my screen. If you notice my browser here, I've got another Copilot feature, if you will. I've got Chat with Copilot built into my browser. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit because it gets a little big. But I can go to different topics, and I have the experience with me in the browser, so we're not having to context switch. So unfortunately, it's not in Azure DevOps in that sense. However, the GitHub Advanced Security tooling is in Azure DevOps. So because you can't access Azure DevOps in this sense, if you will, the backplane, this is only available in the browser.
Yay. Thank you so much, April. Cynthia, would you like to add something else?
Yes, I think we have just a few more minutes, so I just want to remember everyone here, if you want to get the recording of the session to try replicate, especially the tips that April shared with us, don't forget to give us a like here in the video, so because YouTube will include this video in your favorite list. Also, we have a more comments just to say that free to 30K is a lot, so yeah, if we think it's a lot, so we need to talk a lot during the project, so I think it will be a very great enough to create something great. And I just want to open here for April to give us potentially maybe, thinking about next year and potential things that we can expect from GitHub Copilot.
Absolutely. So I think you all can see the chat here we saw it in the thing. Everything's currently in beta. So everything's very hard to get on. You can get on the list for the beta trial. You're going to see a lot more in that. I think you're going to see a lot more in the development process for the human, getting closer to the human experience to make it better and more efficient and a more effective DevOps lifecycle. I think, for anyone that's been using GitHub for a long time, when we came about in 2008 and became, we were just a source code repository. Now we're an entire platform. So we're seeing a lot more features and enterprise level features come into play. So I think watch out in the next 6 months. You're going to see a lot more cool stuff coming out. And stuff will come out of beta as well into alpha and GA.
Amazing. So, April, thanks a lot to be here with us today. We are very happy to have the opportunity to learn from you. And everyone here, please go to follow April on LinkedIn and Twitter. She all the time is sharing great stuff from GitHub. So, thank you so much for today. So I hope to see you next year, maybe coming to share more about DevOps and every great stuff you are doing at GitHub.
Thank you, Cynthia and Avril. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
And also, so I think we have just a new reminder, right, Abril? Because our GitHub Universe Cloud Skills Challenge is coming to an end this Friday. So if you want, to try leverage the tips you got today in the session, so just go to our Cloud Skills Challenge. So we have a trainings for you if you are, I don't know, creating something with Python, JavaScript, or just, starting to code and want to leverage the power of AI, please come to our Cloud Skills Challenge. So I think it will be a very great opportunity. Also, we have a special article created by Glaucia Lemos. She is also a cloud advocate here at Microsoft with some additional research for you to learn more about Codespace and GitHub Copilot. So you can just go directly here to the link aka.ms/reactor/AI/AP06, or just scan the QR code and go directly to Tech Community platform where you can take a look in the summary of this episode and everything you want to learn about GitHub and coding stuff. So Abril, what we are going to learn next week in the next episode?
That's such an amazing question. Thanks for asking. So next week we're going to have more information about responsible AI with Ivana Tilka and Ruth Kubu. So it will be totally exciting. So please feel free to join us next week. It will be amazing. And yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
joining.
Yeah, super great. I think especially as today we discussed about, integrating AI platform into our code is very, very, very important thinking about the responsible AI, because I just remember when GitHub just, launched the GitHub Copilot, many people was, a bit concerned to think, oh my goodness, my code will be exposing for, different people, etc. But it's not about this. So we have the AI to help us, and will be a great opportunity to learn with us next week. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for everyone here in the episode, and hope to see you next week in your next episode. So thank you so much, and thank you, Abril. Bye bye.